Senator Cantwell, you've written to President Trump about the weather. Why did you write to the president about the weather, and what do we need to do to make it better in terms of forecasting and alerting people when really nasty weather's coming?
Well, Kerrville obviously was a big dramatic moment that was hard for all of us to just really absorb. I mean, our hearts go out to those people. But our state, my state, the state of Washington, is a disaster-prone state. So over 20 years, I've seen some pretty horrific events myself. The Oso mudslide, which killed 40 residents from our state, a huge amount of water, made a hillside explode, engulfing a community, killing people on a highway. We saw the same incidents of having a weather forecast be different than what you thought it was going to be, and killed about 18 people on our coast. So we have fires, we have disasters like volcanoes, we have earthquakes. So
and the simple truth is, states around our country are experiencing more extreme weather events that arise more quickly, do more damage than we are historically prepared for.
Exactly.
I mean, that's true all over the country.
That's the point exactly, is to think about now this time frame is happening even in these last 4 events have been record-breaking events. So the point is we're having more extreme weather events, so we need to upgrade our technology. We need a more sophisticated forecast system so we can help get people out of the way and make better plans to do have those storms have less damage.
And to do that, you need equipment that's in the air, you need equipment that's on the ground, that's AI, that's different communications mechanisms. Walk my audience through all those things we need.
Well, I think of it kind of like a software upgrade. Our system is kind of a 1.0, and we need like a 4.0. The good news is that that kind of system is capable today. I'll never forget when we upgraded our Doppler system, and I was so happy out on our coast of Washington after we lost, it was a 100-year event, hurricane winds. And I said, well, now we're set. And these forecasters said, NOAA experts said to me, we're not. I said, we're not? And they said, no, Senator, every particle in a storm can have its own algorithm. You can compute those algorithms by using supercomputing time, and you can tell what is the likely event of this storm and event weeks ahead of time. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, we are not a weather-ready nation. We need to become one, but we have to invest in the equipment and the analysis, like that supercomputing time, and develop those models.
I was reading in your letter to the president, our planes that track hurricanes, still from the 70s.
Yes, yes.
Nothing against the 70s, but it is a while ago.
Sometimes military equipment can last a long time, and we make it last a long time for various reasons. But yes, the hurricanes, think about them causing billions of dollars of damage. You could actually save dollars, save lives if you had better forecasting information. So this is like the science of weather, which we thought we were good at. But now we know we have to be much better. And so those hurricane hunters can do a similar thing with radar that would give you an analysis of the storm, allow you to compute that analysis into better predictability, giving people more advanced warning.
How about communicating this information once we have it?
Well, just think about Kerrville. If you could have said to them, it's really, really warm temperatures over the Gulf, which we knew, that could...
We have remnants of this tropical storm that are hanging around. There's a lot of dampness in the atmosphere, record numbers of particles of dampness, of atmospheric wetness, I guess, is in layman's terms. All these things possibly could come together.
Absolutely. And that is the potential. And then how do you get that communicated to people? And, some of these areas are very remote parts of the United States, and we will have to have new siren systems, and we will need to have new warning mechanisms. But in general, us basically saying to the people in that area, we could, like, for example, there's an article, I think, in today's paper about how an urban setting, like a city like Spokane, might actually be the first major urban city to have a substantial burn, in a long, long time. Why are they? They're looking at the predictive nature of what fire is doing, how fast it travels, what would be the circumstances which it could travel that fast. Okay, let's pretend somebody had given that to Kerrville and said, hey, we might be in for a record flood. Now, I guarantee you that was not the information that was delivered. They had a very short time from 1 a.m. till the actual impact of cresting at whatever it was, 27 or 30 feet, that they didn't have enough time, and particularly when it was in the middle of the night. So part of this, what our labs are working on, and we have a lab, a NOAA lab in Oklahoma that has been working on predictive behavior of tornadoes, and they were able to give people hours warning. When you think about tornado warning, it's usually a few minutes.
Right.
But if you can start telling neighborhoods, start telling communities, we think this kind of formation could reach our area. This is when we predict it might happen. This is what we think the impact would be. It gives people a lot more notice, a lot more time to prepare.
You're on legislation with Senator Ted Cruz. How did that come about?
Well, Texas...
Not exactly ideological allies.
Well, we're both in key positions. He's the chairman of the committee. And, I do think that Texas has been a very impacted state when it comes to weather. They had that big freeze. They obviously they can have hurricanes. They can have, lots of extreme weather
Deluge
events.
rain events.
It is interesting when you look at a map, there is a swath of the United States that is much more disaster prone. But again, because of geography and weather events and the way weather moves. And so he's not uninterested in this subject, but I do think that people realize that being prepared, we hear about this European model all the time, European, where you're like, what's that about? But they literally spend more time analyzing the data, computing it with supercomputing time, and therefore have been able to get more accurate predictions. Well, why don't we want that for the United States? Why don't we want that for ourselves? And that's why the Weather Act tries to symbolize that.
Do the Europeans do it better than we do?
Well, they have accomplished some modeling. If you go back to Sandy, the big event that hit off the East Coast, they had it more accurately predicted than we did. We predicted...
Because they're crunching the numbers at a higher level than we are.
They had the targeting and where it was going to hit and the accuracy of that much more. And if you remember, that was unbelievable flooding in New York. Right? Unbelievable impacts. And so if the technology exists, let's just put it this way, if the technology exists for us to be better at weather, why wouldn't we want to be? I mean, if the impacts are in the billions of dollars and this loss of life, why wouldn't we want to be better prepared? And if it's just about letting our scientists get the data, analyze it, and then basically prepare the communications in a more effective way, that seems like a very prudent investment.
This letter to the president strikes me as written in a kind of specific way. No references to climate change that I saw. So you didn't want to get wrapped around that axle, which has a partisan tint to it. And a lot of aspirational things about American leadership and greatness and exceptionalism and all that. Walk me through the phraseology in this letter to try to communicate this to a Trump White House in a kind of a specific way.
I'm asking President Trump, does he want to have the best weather forecasting system in the world? It's a pretty simple question.
And what do you think the answer is going to be?
I hope it's yes. I hope, well, after the airplane crash mishap in Washington, D.C., I do think his administration said a variety of things, but in the end said, let's upgrade our air traffic control system. Let's make it the best. And I did see him in an early interview on the Kerrville situation say something that kind of alluded to outdated technology. And the truth of the matter is we could have a better system than we have today. So, okay, Mr. President, let's make that a moniker for you and for our nation, and let's save dollars and let's save lives.
How much money are we talking about? What's the timeline to get this done?
Well, think about every storm as billions of dollars, and if you can mitigate that in some ways, now that we know it's hotter and warmer and you can have more fire starts in the Northwest, we do a lot more to treat and prevent major events. And we do things like shutting things down. For example, we shut down a park the other day because we had hot weather, 90 degrees, and we have huge winds. That means you could have 100,000 acres burn up in an afternoon. So you basically want to mitigate any kind of risk that might happen. man-made or otherwise. And here you're looking for the same things. You're looking for what are those kinds of things that could help you prevent serious kind of damage. So let's pretend we got this forecasting information. Senator Murkowski and I are working on LIDAR mapping, which is about where can landslides happen, like where are they most likely to happen. Now, if you had weather modeling forecasting that said, hey, for the next 2 years, we predict much more precipitation because of warmer weather. Warmer weather is going to get you a lot more precipitation, and this is the kind of extremes that we think we will be facing. Then all of a sudden, somebody can put those two things together and say, here's where the most damage could happen, and here's where this kind of wetness would cause us huge problems, and do a better job of moving people out of the way. It's not going to be perfect. Mother Nature is a force, an unbelievable force. But at the same time, we can prepare better strategies, just like I mentioned on fire.
Everything that happens legislatively needs some kind of coalition behind it. Weathercasters are obviously one constituent. The constituents generally affected by this, but I'm wondering, because I do read a lot of stories about cracks forming in the private property insurance market as a result of catastrophic weather damage. It's true in Florida, it's true in my home state of California. I'm sure things are stressed in Washington.
In Washington, we now have...
How much are they sensitized to this, and how much are they willing to put their names or their political clout behind something in this space?
How much is who willing to put that?
Those in the private insurance markets who see all of these things as
they're not,
threats to their bottom line.
Oh, they're not. They're backing away. We now have counties or geographic regions in Washington state that are saying they'll no longer insure based on fire damage and the threat of fire damage and risk. Yes. So that is happening, and that's going to continue. So I think I'm just counting on the American public. When I think about farmers, I think about fishermen, I think about hikers like me, I think about families who want to go out and recreate. They want accurate information. And if you told them that you could get more accurate information, I think they would think it's a prudent investment. But if you told them that this kind of damage was costing you trillions of dollars every 10 years, shouldn't you mitigate some of that impact? I think people would say absolutely. And so I think it's really trying to tell that story. I think the weathermen will be helpful because they're the ones who have to do this every day. Right. They have to say this. But I think that these, the fact that everybody pays attention, why is the weather on at the last in the news, right? Because everybody wants to get to it. They want to hear what it's going to be. So it is vital information.
And back to the cost, do you have any sense of how much this costs? We're talking about 20 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion? I don't even know.
I think it's the first answer, more in the tens of billions maybe.
So pennies on the dollar, essentially, when you think about the scope of the federal budget and the accumulated damage in the last few years from extreme weather events.
Well, when you think about the analysis that is done by NOAA people or supercomputing time, you're talking in the hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You're not talking in the billions of dollars. But when you have to buy satellite equipment or you have to buy new hurricane hunters, yes, you're talking about a technology upgrade. But let's just take the radar system, for example. It is definitely 1.0, and we need 4.0. If a radar system can't really analyze all those particles correctly, can't give you that forecast, can't allow you to create a model that then gives you some level of predictability, well, it's really just giving us limited information. Helpful, but limited. And if the cost of each storm is in the billions of dollars, isn't making that kind of investment to get us the better forecasting going to save every storm? So every storm could be $2 billion cheaper just because you had this investment telling you what the likelihood of impact was going to be and what to do to plan for it.
As I read this letter, it's an authorization. You need appropriations. You need a vehicle to spend the money. Sure, you need to authorize it, but you got to get the money. Is that something you can accomplish in this appropriation cycle, which is already getting pretty gnarly in terms of what's available and what the top line numbers are and how it's all going to land?
I'm here with you, with somebody who wants to spend this time talking about this in hopes that my colleagues will understand, stop for a minute, and not get thwarted by, oh, we can just cut lots of government. And that is kind of, I kind of use the Boeing example. Some people came along and said, there are 300 safety people and we can just cut them. And the people who are inspecting the work should just inspect their own work. And that way we'll save all these people. Didn't work out. Didn't work out for Boeing.
Not at all.
And the point is, just because you
A cost-saving decision that company now deeply regrets and is having to dig its way out of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in reality, it was a crucial function they shouldn't have let go of. And in this instance, we're saying this investment is a crucial function that will actually save you money. And that's why you should make the investment so that we can start mitigating. So Susan Collins and I had asked the GAO several years ago, how much was all of this climate impact costing the federal government, just taxpayers? And they said billions of dollars in a 5-year window. And we asked them recently to update that and that analysis, GAO, and they said it's now costing us trillions of dollars. So we see it. We see it in the press. So now the question is, what can you do about it? And having the U.S. government be the technologist in chief on weather, be able to then participate with both the public and the private sector on plans that help mitigate that impact, help us, deliver better results, is a key element to the strategy. And I don't think it's different than how technology upgrades affect other parts of the government. We want the best in the military. Mm-hmm. We want the best with our weather.
Is any part of this communication with the White House that this is a real red state problem? Meaning there's been a lot of natural disasters in what we, on the map, call red states. I know there are blue parts of every red state and red parts of every blue state. But is that part of the way to communicate to the White House about why this needs to be done, both politically and from a policy perspective?
Yeah, I don't know if you could bring up a map that shows this swath of the U.S. that is, the more disaster-related states.
Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia,
well, it goes through
Norfolk,
this. It goes through the South,
right,
along the coast, all the way up and into into Montana. And so, it is. I'm not saying other states don't have it. It's the question of frequency, but. I think the issue is that when the federal government, when you really can save lives, when your job, you have so few jobs here like this, but when your job is to help save lives by informing the public, somebody suggested, oh, well, this all could be done locally. There's no way. You can't do weather kind of forecasting for the whole nation, station by station. This is about the federal government in the Weather Service having the best information to inform across the United States as weather moves how to get out of the way.
Right. Some of the warnings that were issued in Kerrville started with analysis done in Baltimore about atmospheric intensity.
Yeah, probably. Yes, I don't know that detail, but yeah, probably did. Probably did. And
speaking of the national scope of all of this.
Oh, absolutely. We want the best scientists to analyze the potential threat that this, or change, let's just call it a change if you want to call it a change. What is the change in the situation, and what is it doing to us, and what can we do? And I think that as people's hearts broke watching so much coverage of Kerrville and the people that were impacted, and then we were seeing similar events in New Mexico and similar events in other places. People were saying, what is going on? And what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen in our region?
Senator Cantwell, always a pleasure. Please
Always.
come back.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.